Imagine the immense joy of a nation raising its own flag for the very first time. In the 1960s, across Africa, decades of colonial rule finally gave way to independence. But as the celebrations quieted down, a hard reality set in. These newly formed countries found themselves boxed in by the borders drawn by their former colonizers, leaving their economies completely isolated from one another. To understand what this meant, let's look at a farmer in Uganda. He has a rich, valuable harvest of coffee beans and cotton, and he wants to sell it to buyers across the continent. The problem was actually getting it there. Moving his goods to a market in West Africa meant crossing multiple national borders. At every single crossing, his truck would be hit with massive import taxes, known as tariffs, making his coffee too expensive to sell. And taxes weren't the only roadblock. The lingering effects of colonial rule left behind disputed borders and civil unrest, making long-distance travel incredibly dangerous for anyone trying to transport goods. It became clear very quickly that simply flying a new flag wasn't enough. To survive and rebuild their economies, African nations realized they had to work together. That realization led to a massive meeting in Addis Ababa in 1963. 32 independent African countries came together to form the Organization of African Unity, or OAU, essentially creating the continent's first neighborhood watch. Founding leaders, like Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, knew that before they could focus on free trade, they had to secure the entire neighborhood. Their immediate priority was the total political liberation of the continent. The OAU pooled their resources to defend the borders of newly independent states. They actively funded and supported liberation movements in countries that were still struggling under foreign control. They also organized intense international diplomatic and economic pressure against the white minority government in South Africa. This constant pressure played a major role in dismantling the racist system of apartheid. The OAU achieved its goal of political freedom. However, its charter included a strict rule to never interfere in the internal affairs of a member state. Because of this, the organization couldn't stop brutal civil wars inside countries, and it left the continent's economic development trailing far behind. As the 21st century began, the continent needed an organization built for modern problems. In 2002, the OAU officially transitioned into the African Union. With the era of political liberation largely complete, the African Union shifted its focus. Its new goals were to tightly connect African economies, promote democratic governments, and actively protect human rights. To handle internal conflicts, the AU created a specialized group called the Peace and Security Council. Unlike the old OAU, this council has the authority to step in and stop internal violence directly. When a civil war breaks out, the council can deploy military peacekeeping troops to stabilize the region, disarm fighters, and ensure civilians are protected. This focus on active peacekeeping is critical. Without physical safety on the ground, transport trucks can't move, and cross-border trade is impossible. With a framework for peace in place, African countries could finally tackle those massive border taxes. They did this by forming smaller partnerships with their direct neighbors, known as regional economic groupings, or common markets. This map shows how those partnerships divide the continent. A common market is an agreement between these specific neighboring countries to remove unfair import taxes. It allows goods, money, and workers to move freely across their borders. Remember our Ugandan farmer? Because Uganda is a member of specific common markets, like the East African Community and COMESA, his transport truck can now drive right into neighboring countries to sell his coffee without paying those heavy taxes. These neighboring countries also pool their money together to build shared infrastructure that no single nation could afford alone, like massive hydroelectric dams and connecting railway lines. Some of these regional groups also handle specific local emergencies. For example, ECOWAS manages security operations in West Africa, while IGAD coordinates regional responses to severe droughts in the Horn of Africa. By linking their economies together, these smaller states transform themselves from isolated, vulnerable markets into massive interconnected networks. Of course, this kind of cooperation comes with trade-offs. Dropping import taxes means local governments collect less money at their borders. Plus, small local businesses suddenly have to compete with these cheaper goods flooding in from more developed neighbors. The larger African Union also faces persistent hurdles. Because many member states struggle to pay their annual dues, the AU still relies heavily on foreign donations to keep its programs running. Yet, even with these growing pains, the financial and social rewards of working together far outweigh the struggles of trying to survive in isolation. Today, you can see the results of these agreements on the ground. Commercial trucks pass smoothly from one nation to the next, connecting local farmers with millions of new buyers and generating real wealth. The next time you visit a local supermarket, pick up a bag of sugar or a bottle of water and look closely at the packaging. You will likely see a quality stamp from the EAC or COMESA printed right on the label. Winning political freedom was an enormous victory for the continent. But building a lasting, thriving economy requires a daily commitment to cooperate. By choosing to trade and build together, African nations are securing their own shared prosperity.